Financial help, but there's also millions of pounds of European money available, money that is specifically designed to help battered communities. Rivers where roads should be and flooded homes seems familiar, of course, from the last few weeks, but this is actually North Yorkshire back in 2007. The government got money from the European Solidarity Fund set up to help countries hit by natural disasters. Councils in our region got over £480,000 to help with the clean-up.
The fund has paid out over 3 billion in the last 12 years since it came into existence, but it was of course mainly the countries that have been repeatedly affected by these disasters, and here one country sticks out, particularly Italy. Italy received 1 billion in the past 12 years.
But despite the damage caused by storms Desmond, Eva and Frank, and of course the cost of putting it right, the government hasn't yet applied for any money under that scheme. Time is running out as well. Applications have to be in by the end of next month. And some have now accused the government of dragging their feet for political reasons.
The fundamental reason is that too many people who are Conservative MPs are anti-Europe and don't want us to do something which, as well as being great news for flood victims, would also be a good news story about the European Union.
But there's a snag with the scheme. If Britain applies, its EU rebate is reduced. So when Britain last applied after the 2007 floods, it was awarded £110 million. But over two-thirds of it, nearly £80 million, was lopped off the rebate. The government hasn't ruled out applying again, but speaking earlier this month, the Prime Minister sounded reluctant.
It takes a very long time to get hold of any money. It's very uncertain about whether you will get it, and indeed you end up paying for it in many ways as well. So I think it's quicker and better to give people the help they need from our own resources.
But this week Labour sent an open letter to the Environment Secretary urging her to apply for money under the scheme. And back in Hayden Bridge, the clean-up continues for Avril. She'll be out of her home until at least the summer, and reckons ministers should grab that EU flood money while they can.
This country pays a lot into the EU, and why can't we get something back? Why can't we? People all over the country, Carlisle, we all need help. All these counties need help, but we need that big money.
Well, Kersop, well, she's clear. She thinks she should be applying for the money. Jonathan Arnott, the government says it's not worth the bother, potentially. Labour Lib Dems say, yes, we must go for it. What's your view?
Well, whilst we're in the European Union, of course it's nice to say, can we please have a little bit of our own money back? The problem in this case is that for every £3 that we apply for in that funding, we're going to lose £2 of that out of the rebate the following year. So you get some back, but then you have to hand a little bit of that back itself. And once you've taken into account all of the admin costs, the fact that it's going to take so much time for the money to come through, look, yeah, I think we probably should just about on balance go for it, but it's such a marginal decision. It's not what Tim Farron's suggesting, that this is some amazing victory for pro-EU people if we get some of our own money back and then have to give some of it away again. It's nothing like that. But whilst we're in the EU, if it's just slightly better to have it than not, then I suppose, yeah, we should go for it.
Jude Kern-Darling, the government's view seems to be that it's not worth the grief.
Well, it feels like that's the government's view on everything to do with the North at the moment. It wasn't worth the grief saving the steel industry. It's not worth the grief going for money for food banks, and it's not worth the grief going for the floods money. But the crucial
point, can't you? And if you could go through an application process, you're never quite sure how much you're going to get back, when it's going to come back. You might as well say, look, the urgency is to do something now. We'll put our money in and just forget about this European funding.
Well, in fact, it's all calculated on the estimated cost to the economy of the flood. So it's pretty guaranteed what you get back. And as Jonathan said, we actually get more back as a result of applying in the end. It's a net gain for the UK. So it makes no political sense at all that we don't go and we don't apply for that money.
Martin Cullinan, if I was given a tenner and they said to me, well, you've got to pay £7 of it back next year, I'll just put the £7 in the bank, spend the £3. Why can't we do that?
When I knew this was coming up today, I went and checked this with the officials responsible to get chapter and verse on this. Firstly, the government haven't ruled out applying. They're going through the process of estimating all the damages now before they decide whether to apply or not. Secondly, it's a very bureaucratic process. It has to be approved by 27 other member states and, as Jude and Jonathan will know, in the European Parliament. Thirdly, we lose a large proportion anyway of that back through our rebate. And fourthly, none of that money can go to individuals or businesses affected. It just reimburses the government for money that they've already spent, and it could be 9 or 10 months before we get it. So we haven't ruled it out. Now, nobody's saying if there's free money there, of course, the government will apply. But on previous occasions, when governments of both political persuasions have looked at this, they've decided actually it's going to cost more to apply for it and to go through the bureaucratic hoops than we get a benefit by obtaining it.
If you were advising the government, would you say don't bother?
It's a marginal decision. The officials are going through that the details at the moment, and they haven't ruled out applying. But this is not going to be a substantial new pot of money. It just reimburses the government a small piece. Not at all. I mean, I spoke to the officials. They say they are going through the process now. They're going through the calculations as to whether it's worth it or not. And what government would not apply for money if they thought they were going to get, as Jonathan says, at least a small proportion of our own money back again? We are strapped for cash in this country. We have a massive budget deficit. Of course we'll get money back if we possibly can. But we have to ask if the whole process is worth the trouble. And it's not going to make any difference to the individual communities.
Well, your example about £10 and £7, I take that one step further. It's about if we've given £20 over to the European Union, they then are saying, well, we'll let you have £10 of funding back, but you've got to give us another £7. It's a little bit like that. And then the question is, the real question on this debate, and why it is such a minute issue compared with the vast amounts of money we're giving to the EU, is that other £3 might just be about the cost of administration.
Okay.
We should be talking about the 20, not the 30.
This is not a great advert, as Jonathan Arnott says, for our membership of the European Union, is it? Having to sort of go cap in hand for our own money back and then having more of it clawed back afterwards.
On the contrary, this is a great example of how the European Union actually can help ordinary people across the UK. This is a fund that was set up to deal with natural disasters where normal people are affected by things completely out of their control, as we saw with the rains in December. The key thing is that it's the choice of the national government if they want to channel that money back to the local level. There would be nothing to stop the UK government saying the extra money that we get goes directly to the people who are affected in Hayden Bridge, in Cumbria and elsewhere.
You cannot give it to individuals or businesses. Okay. That's part of the rules of the scheme.
Okay, all right, well, we're not going to agree on that one. We'll have to leave it there. We'll see what happens with that application process, whether it happens or not.